Hello, and welcome back to the Modeling Success in Action podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, and today I am joined by Melissa McHenry. Now, Melissa is a mindful productivity educator and the founder of ThriveOps Labs. Her Sync and Thrive sessions teach women how to align their work, creativity, and rest with the 4 phases of their hormonal cycle, moving from pushing through to planning with nature's rhythms. A certified bullet journal trainer, she brings a grounded, practical lens to cyclical biology. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Hey, thanks, Jessica. So happy to be here.
Great to have you. So I met Melissa through another awesome woman that we both know that's actually been on the show. I think she was in our season 1, Jen Thacker. And I got to hear Melissa speak on this cycle and the Sync and Thrive sessions that you do. And I went, oh, that's cool. That makes sense. I need to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about kind of just how you came to this place with wanting to teach women how to sync up with their cycle. I'm assuming that this started in your own life somewhere.
Yes, exactly. It started after a very, very busy season of life, followed by a really great 6 months of rest. I traveled with my husband through Southeast Asia, and I just really got to reconnect with myself and my values reoriented. And I realized I wanted more experience in life and less busyness and hustle. And when I returned to the working world, I returned doing like a part-time 3-day-a-week job for a biotech. It was still very fast-paced, and I just started exploring more productivity tools, frankly, because I wanted the time I was working to be as fruitious as possible, to allow for me to be able to have more experience and enjoy the other parts of my life. And somewhere along the way, I stumbled into hormonal rhythms. And, I really discovered this, frankly, because I was constantly reflecting on my own life and setting goals and tracking habits. And then I realized I was very inconsistent throughout the month. And when I realized that inconsistency actually just mapped to the 4 phases of my cycle, I had a real aha moment. And that's when I just started channeling each of these different phases, kind of with their superpower. And by doing that, I just became a lot more effective in my work. And of course, it naturally led me to start talking about it to all my friends and everyone who would listen, because I was really blowing my own mind. I'd lived in this female body for so long, and yet I didn't really know this. And so it was through that I really discovered a lot of other women are interested in this and would benefit from learning about it.
Mm. And like you're right, a lot of us aren't even thinking about it. But I love how this really is like the epitome of work smarter, not harder, because you're like tuning into the actual intelligence of our body, right? Like nature is the ultimate intelligence, right? And when we try and
Yes.
outthink it, it's not smarter, right? Like yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So then what was it like to start to like how did you begin to sync up to this? Like how did you manage your life around it when you were like, "Aha, ooh, I see what's going on here." How did you then fill that gap?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been like a very organized person, love the planning cycle. And so for me, it was really easy to just incorporate this into my planning cycle. And I thought of my tasks as basically falling into one of these 4 categories. And then I started planning my life that way. It was interesting because, of course, I worked on a team with a lot of other people and I had a lot of different projects. But I quickly learned that I was still able to live in that construct and work with my biology, because a lot of projects take a 4 to 6 weeks to work on. And so as long as I could really premeditate what I had to do and plan well, I was able to honor my cycle and I didn't have to announce it to the world.
Hmm. So did it shift the way that you were, planning and setting your goals?
Completely. I mean, one of the first things I teach is to shift your planning and your goal setting to when you're actually in your menstrual phase. This is a very inward part of your cycle, and it's, a lot of people give it honestly have a bad connotation with getting their period, right? Or their menses. And it can be a really great time to reflect and look at your life. And I began doing that and quickly reaped the benefits because my intuition was so strong then too, and my practical brain really worked together to, kind of chart the course for the month. And then by kind of working with your strengths all month, I saw myself just be so much more effective.
So can you give us an example of what this actually looks like in real life? Like how this translates to, the rhythm of, a working woman's life?
Yeah. So the planning cycle I already mentioned, which is your menses, and then you move into what I call like the inspired creator. And this is your follicular, you're very energetic. All of the neurons are firing. Uh, Brainstorming's really easy. It's just like all the ideas start connecting, right? So it's a great time to push yourself harder and get started on your projects. And you create this momentum if you do that too. All of a sudden you're really pushing yourself into it. And then we move into your ovulatory phase, or the charismatic connector, as I like to call her, because that's a really great time to start leaning into your communication with others. So if you have this great project that you're working on and you've been just have all these ideas, you move into your ovulation phase and now you're interacting with other people. You're telling your ideas, you're getting feedback. It's really easy to get the answers you want from people. So you're elevating whatever you're working on, right?
And that's a really short window of time, right? You got 2 or 3 days to capitalize on that, right?
Exactly. And it's kind
Yeah.
of fun when you just begin to focus on your relationships and the external. And because you're so charismatic, people pick up on it too.
Hmm.
And it serves you overall in your career. It could also be the time to ask for a raise or have that difficult conversation with one of your employees or your boss, because communication flows so much easier,
I was
right?
gonna say those are the few days when I'm feeling like I'm feeling myself, and so I record a bunch of reels,
Yes,
right?
exactly,
And
exactly.
it's easier to show up on camera when you're like, "Oh, I just look gorgeous today," right?
My skin's glowing, I've got it
Yeah, exactly.
all.
I'm radiant.
I know, I know. And the connection piece and expressing yourself, I mean, the expression is actually a huge, huge part of ovulation too. Because as women, I think we really are like the ultimate creators, right? And that phase is really a beautiful time to be able to express whatever it is we're doing in the world.
Mhm. And we haven't talked about the ugly stepsister yet.
I know. Luteal has a very bad reputation for good reason. I mean, we've all had those serious energy dips, right? One thing though I have observed in myself is as I live more aligned, I find luteal to be more enjoyable, honestly, because I haven't burnt myself out by then, or I've just lived in harmony, right? And that phase is really powerful for wrapping things up and being able to do solo work, tie loose ends. It's the time you look at a spreadsheet and do all your analytics. Uh, you start seeing what's not working in your life, and this is what we all we all know this experience, right?
But it's like you see it, but I mean, like, I've always been told, "Don't make any decisions, like, don't pull the trigger on anything,"
Exactly.
right? Like, see, and then
Exactly.
when you come back around, decide if, "Hey, was I right or was I hormonal?"
E Exactly. It's actually a really good time to practice self-awareness because it's where you get to see, okay, is this feeling mine or is this not mine? And just sitting with things instead of acting on things so much, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Teaches patience.
Yeah, but I always had to do expense reports, I remember, and I hated doing my expense reports, but if I left them to my luteal phase, that last phase, I had this like wrap it up, get her done energy. It's like
Mhm.
a new start is coming. It's like I equate it to that energy you have right before you go on vacation, and you just want to get all these loose ends tied up so you can just enjoy your vacation. And that's kind of, if you start paying attention, that's kind of the psychology that we
Yeah.
have as women towards the end of our cycle. And
Yeah.
then it shows up in home life too. For mothers, you know, like this is a great time to clean the house and kind of prepare. This is our like inner autumn, right? So we're preparing for our inner winter, which is our menses. And so cleaning up things in the house and kind of preparing our space is also really cool.
So, okay, obviously you see the benefit of it because you had a lightning bolt moment. You're going, aha, like I need to shift this. So you understand the value, but how do you, if you were trying to, show somebody the value of this, how do you convince somebody that slowing down and working, in the rhythms is worth it? That's
Yeah,
not
I
going to
mean, it's
cost
a
them productivity, right? Because you're like, a lot of people are like, I just need to go and I need to be on all the time. I don't have time for a winter, right?
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
reality is it might cost you some results sometimes, but at what cost? It's like maybe you lose results in your business, but you haven't lost the connection and your health. I mean, let's be real. A lot of people push themselves to the point of burnout, just overextension, just constantly needing to recover. And if you live in like coherence in your body, like 99.9% of the time, your creations, your work is going to just feel smoother and you will get the results, not at the cost of your body. It's not, maybe it isn't for everyone, right? As much as I would love to think it is, some people are willing to push hard. And I'm not saying that you don't push sometimes and push your body to an extreme because I certainly know that that's important and do that too. But really understanding that your body has wisdom and if you honor it, it will teach you more than you could ever imagine as well as make you more productive in your business.
It's interesting too because it's like we always think we're getting away with things, but we don't get away with it. There's always a cost, right? So it's like, are you losing out on productivity now or later because you have to take stress leave or burnout or retire early or what, like, whatever it is?
Mm,
It all comes out in the
exactly.
wash, right? And then, do you want it to be something enjoyable or do you want it to be a crisis, right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Exactly. We only have this like finite amount of energy, right? And so we have to be very conscious of how we're using that.
hmm So, like, can you give an example of like a difference that you've seen and how this has actually like created something in your life that was better than that life you were living before in that burnout zone? Like, can you give us an example of what this looks like for you?
Yeah, I mean, now, like I've been on the entrepreneurial journey for about a year and a half now. And for me, it really means that my business feels like even more of an expression of myself. I think because I have the opportunity to be so in tune with my body that my creativity is honestly just on a whole other level. And I think that's the piece that I would have never thought was there is that this is also ultimately like the best creative cycle to give somebody. And for me, feeling like I'm a creative makes me really happy in my life. And then, of course, the other big part is just understanding my body. And I'm so much healthier for this. My relationships are healthier because once you start understanding how these rhythms are showing up in your body and how you're living them out in the work you do, you start also understanding your relationships differently and you start understanding the other roles that you're playing in your life and how you're showing up. And, as a woman who's going to be 40 this year, I'm already starting to see my hormones start to change a little bit. And I have that awareness, that attunement of what that actually means because I've been paying attention for so long.
That's a really great point. So when we're moving into perimenopause and our cycles are, they're no longer as predictable, then what do you do to kind of try and tune in and live with the rhythm of the body at that point? Do you have you had clients that have been in that, 45 to 50 kind of range where things are like a roller coaster?
Yeah, I mean, actually, to be honest, like a lot of the women I work with right now are in that phase of life because I think I just do so much work with women in planning and productivity. And I just think that it feels really chaotic. And so the tools I teach really ground them. But the, the reality is like we have been living in this rhythm for so long. And it's clear it's a lunar cycle. We're water. There's a connection there. And a lot of men will even say that they can notice their own rhythm with the lunar cycle as well, right? So what I teach particularly with my menopausal women, the women who've already been initiated into that phase of life, is to just work with the lunar cycle. And yeah, most people just really like the idea that they get to cycle
Hmm.
because they missed this information when they were cycling. Um, creating a rhythm where you get to pause, push, express, and then go back in is just a very natural, powerful, like I said, a very great creative rhythm, right? The perimenopausal, going back to the perimenopausal women, by learning about this, you start understanding, okay, so my estrogen makes me, very productive and have all these connections and expressive. Okay, so I'm in my supposed follicular phase and I'm not feeling that as much. So does that mean my estrogen's lower, right? Or the calmness that is usually coming when you have luteal. There is a calmness, which is progesterone. Uh, if you don't have that, what does that mean for your body and where and how it's changing, right? Um, it learning how to live with your rhythms makes it so much easier, honestly, to live in the chaos. Because if you're thinking that every single day looks different, when the chaos of the hormones arrive, it feels like, okay, this is just another rhythm I need to adjust to.
Hmm. Hmm. I love how you even brought the men into it. They notice the cycle because they do have their own kind of hormonal cycle that's going on. It's a lot longer than ours, right? But do you ever have men getting curious about how they can like sync up and be more productive with their own energies?
For men, they definitely are interested in the testosterone in the daily cycle, obviously, because
Yeah.
it's very unique to them.
Okay.
Particularly telling men how like that's really normal to have that like afternoon dip,
Hmm.
that energy dip that happens like at between 3 and 5, which is the reason I think happy hour was created, was because that's the time that men's testosterone is just lowers enough that makes them very social, right?
Mm.
And so,
Interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting. So, the men, I haven't worked as one to one with men as much. I really am grateful that my practice has been predominantly with women. But I will say, a lot of men are still very interested in Sync and Thrive and
Yeah.
understanding this. And I think that's so powerful because they want to support their women.
Hmm. I'm seeing more and more men getting curious about it and like even asking for education, seminars and being like, we want information. We want to know why our wife is so mad at us this week.
And and look, the reason I was able to learn this so quickly was because of my husband.
Yeah.
He held so much space and was such a good reflection. And to be able to have those conversations that aren't triggering, right? Because it can feel like sometimes you have this other entity, right? We even gave each of the phases their own nickname so that we could talk about it like it was
Yeah, like
something separate.
an other in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mm,
Yeah. Sorry, that wasn't me. That was just Sharon.
exactly. Oh, look who's here.
Yeah. Too good. So, okay. So then how then like if you're a woman that's a part of like, a larger group of people, right? Like it's not just you, right? You're not a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, maybe you're working in a team or an organization. Like how do you make it so that this all works together?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I think about it, it gets me so excited because, okay, so first of all, if you have a whole crew of women who are working together and each of them are in different phases of their cycle, they each come to a meeting with a different superpower, right? And if each of those women was just leaning into that superpower, in their organization. Could you imagine how powerful that would be, right? You have one person who's really into planning and grounded and intuitive, inner Menzies and that inner Winter. And then you have the one who's just like brainstorming and has all the ideas. Then you have the woman who's the connector in her ovulation and she's able to kind of create the energy in the room. And then you have one gal who's there just taking all the notes, checking the details, questioning what's actually going on. Um, yeah, I mean, so there's so many parts of women showing up in the organization, obviously. So that's like, this world where all the women are working together, right? Just really leaning into their own phases. But that's obviously not the world we completely live in, right? And we're working with a lot of different people. Yeah, exactly. And as somebody who has worked this way in organizations, I know it's possible. And I really think what organizations have the potential to do, and this is like creating a great company culture. I worked in HR for almost 15 years, and you can clearly see that great cultures do the same things. And that is they have real clear goals and a mission and a vision that people are all working towards, but you also have to have clarity on what needs to get done so that individuals have the opportunity to plan in alignment with their own energy. So individuals are really responsible for their own energy management and knowing what they can and cannot do and when they can do it. But the organization is really required to set up the structure in order for people to do that. So it's creating clear goals, letting people know what they have to do in a longer time span than making people have to be so reactive all the time, and allow for planning cycles to exist within your organization, whether it's monthly or every quarter, and having the opportunity to plan together and find out where everyone needs to overlap, and when people need to work individually. And I am not saying by any means that, living this way means that, oh, you're feeling tired one day that you just shouldn't work. I just think you have to start listening to your body. That's the biggest piece, right? And there's information that you're getting, it's data, and you use that. If you're tired and you have to work on that big presentation, still work on the presentation, still deliver it, but know that maybe you need to ask your buddy to look it over because you're more prone to making mistakes, right? Communicate when timelines aren't going to be met and why. I think that's a huge part of it, but I do think that people can be generally just more mindfully productive, but that organizations can also set up the conditions for that.
And as you were saying that, that brought to mind also like the idea of, and I mean, I know this is a feature in everybody's life, but for women especially, they take on a lot of like, you know, obligation, right? And so how have you noticed your clients or even yourself, having to let go of some of the guilt or, like of being, you know, taking action for themselves rather than taking on what the outside world is maybe expecting of them or what they've been doing, and knowing that, hey, this is actually better for everyone because I'm taking care of me. So have you seen that coming up, that guilt thing?
Completely. And I think the side benefit of tuning into your body is that you start listening so deeply that those answers just start coming and you realize and okay, that's crossing my boundary. I'm overextending myself here. Um, it's quite amazing when I work with women because they're often very, very self-aware, like many of us are, right? And we know where we need to course correct. And so to see them start by listening to these signal cues in their body, and then it turning what it turns into is so cool. Is yeah, creating different boundaries, realizing they need to ask their spouse for more help, that they're taking on a mothering role in their job. All these things become very apparent when you start listening more.
Yeah. So before we wrap this whole thing up today, I was just curious if somebody wanted to begin this for themselves, if they wanted to step into your model of the world and start to reap some of these benefits, where might they start?
I think that having a journal practice is so beneficial, and that's why I became certified in bullet journal training, because you need to start observing what's going on. You just need to become that conscious observer who's paying attention to what it feels like to be in your body, what sort of thoughts are racing through your head, and you'll start quickly making those connections. It's through my own journal practice that I even discovered that this was a thing. Um, and so just taking the time to pay attention, but putting it on paper because that paper becomes a paper mirror, and you really begin to learn about yourself through it.
That's awesome. We'll do an exercise sometimes with the client to imagine that they've got a video camera that's following them around all the time and watching everything that they're doing, like, throughout their life, so that they can see
Yeah,
that they can actually see what's going on, right? And so that awareness, right? Like incompetent, like unconscious incompetence, right? When you don't know what you don't know, you don't know, right? You don't even know that it's not happening. It's outside of your awareness. You can't do anything. You have to bring it into the awareness so that you can take action on it, right? So, that's an awesome
no,
place to start.
exactly.
I love that. So if anybody wants to reach out to Melissa, or they'd like to find out how they can get into that Thrive and Sync and Thrive sessions, I'm going to leave all of her details below. You can reach out and connect with her. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show
Thanks,
today.
Jessica.
I really hope.
Thanks, Jessica.
Yay, you're welcome. I hope everyone can step into your model and start to do this for themselves, men and women.
Great. Thank you so much. It was such a joy to be here.